Hi.
Hey, hi, Zibby.
Hi,
I
how
don't,
are you?
I don't think I can teach you anything. I feel like you're
Really?
the hardest working mom in the pandemic. I mean, my gosh, you're like a one woman content factory. I am impressed. You're exhausting. I used to be you. I used to be you, Zibby. It was great. You're exhausted. I love it.
Tell me more about the Satellite Sisters, though. I mean,
Okay.
how great. What was it like being one of the first podcasters? Like, that's so neat. And how
It
has it
was
like evolved over time?
it was actually sort of embarrassing because people were like, what's a podcast? So we used to just call it a talk show because my sister's like, don't use the word podcaster, that's weird. But we started Satellite Sisters 20 years ago because I have a sister, Liz, who's a go-getter, and she's in marketing and communication, and she just really didn't understand why there wasn't anything on the radio that sounded like her friends or her sisters when we sat around and talked to each other about, the news and our lives and what was happening in our careers and relationships and, the bad haircut we just got. Like, why was it just sports and politics and men on the radio? And so she cooked up this idea, and she said we could do that, the five of us. I mean, we were nurses and teachers and moms. Like, we did not have radio experience, but we managed to sell that show to WNYC in New York, which is the largest public radio station in the country. And we had to raise all our own money. So now all of a sudden we're running a business and pitching Silicon Valley for money. And then we were on public radio for 3 years. And then we moved to ABC radio for 6, where we were doing 6 days a week of live radio, 3 hours a day. So,
Oh my gosh.
I
And
mean,
that's a
you'll say
lot.
anything. You'll
Yeah.
say anything by Friday. Anything. So, and then, and then Disney sold off the radio division, and it was like 2008. And again, the world was collapsing. And so, but we knew that like women really loved our show, and there wasn't really anything like it on the air. So I took my iMac into the Apple store, and I was like, kid, asked the 12-year-old genius, can you teach me how to edit in GarageBand? I feel like I want to start a podcast. And he was like,
Oh my
oh,
gosh.
okay, lady. And then we just did it. We'd all sit in our closets and connect via Skype. And used to be pretty complicated to upload this kind of stuff. And but now everything's so much easier. But the idea is still the same: women connecting with each other, talking about the things that really matter in their daily lives. So and now podcasting's like a thing. So, so but so we still enjoy doing the show.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure it helps you keep close with your siblings or your sisters, right? I mean, how
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I mean, the key is that we don't go to the same office every day, or then we might have killed each other. It might have
Yeah.
lasted 6 months.
Yeah.
But we've always lived sometimes on different continents when we did the show. One of my sisters lived in Bangkok, and then Moscow when we were doing the show, or New York, LA, Portland. So we've always lived in different places, and it has really kept us connected. It's also a way to see your siblings, your sisters, as grown adults. I think a lot of people get stuck in their family habits and their behavior and everything. Like at 13, what was the worst moment of your life? Like when you did the stupidest thing. Okay, that's what your brothers and sisters are going to hold over you for the rest of your life.
Yes, very true. Wait, so tell me now about your book. So this is about a DNA themed ancestry-ish.
Yes.
Well, here,
yes.
You take it away.
Okay, so the Sweeney Sisters, it's my third novel, but it's the first one I've written about sisters, because I felt like I wanted to distinguish myself from the other 4 Dolan girls for a while, but I felt ready after 20 years of sisterhood to write a book about sisters. And I was sort of looking for a way in, and I started seeing a lot of posts on Facebook about people saying, hey, look, here we are, all these siblings in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and look, we discovered we have a new sibling. Yay, thumbs up. And it got me thinking, would it be thumbs up? I mean, really, like, I tried to imagine what it was like if somebody showed up in our family and said, hey, I'm your long lost sibling. We have a birth order, we have a structure, we have people who host Thanksgiving and people who just bring the shrimp to Thanksgiving. Like, we have worked it out. And, you know, I just didn't think that would be necessarily such a super duper thing right away. So that was kind of the jumping off point. And it's about three Irish Catholic girls from Connecticut, which is a little autobiographical. But they discover after a series of events through a DNA test that there's another sister out there.
But just to be clear, this is not like a very veiled secret that you're hiding from all of us.
No. I mean, no. I mean, also have three brothers, so there are 8 of us.
Oh
and
my gosh.
eight Dolans. My mother was exhausted. She was not looking. She was not fooling around out there. Both my parents. So no, this is not us. But I've certainly talked to people, you know, during writing the book. And when I tell people the premise of the book, I am surprised how many people will say, oh my gosh, that happened in my family, or this and that, we just learned, or, I mean, so it's not us, but it's a lot of people.
Yeah. So were most people, did they share, like, what were their initial reactions, or did it just span across the board?
It was across the board. I talked to a couple of people who wanted to remain anonymous that had contacted me through Facebook. They're regular Satellite Sisters listeners, and I had reached out to them when I saw their posts. And both of them were very honest. Some of the circumstances were complicated, how this person came to be into the world. But all said a couple of things. All said, like, when I found out, I just kept staring at my face. Like, what was this face I was looking at in the mirror? How did it fit into this new family tree now? So that was a really evocative image for me. And then they said, don't make everything hunky-dory and perfect, because people have a lot of reactions. You know, like, it's not all, you know, great. It's not all great. Yeah. It's complicated. So I was very careful, I think, to honor that, you know, just to write that into the story. Like, there are skeptics. People are skeptical and suspicious. So I tried to use both those images.
And what was your process like writing? How long did the book take you to write?
This was a pretty fast book for me. I sold it. I sold it on a pitch, and a pitch that I put together really quickly, like on Tuesday for a Wednesday meeting, that kind of thing. Like, my agent's like, hey, do you got any books about sisters? The editor's interested to hear that. I'm like, oh yeah. Well, tomorrow? Yeah, sure. So I put it together pretty fast. And I was surprised it moved very quickly, I think, because it was topical. So right away I had to start writing. Like, I went from a pitch to a 2-pager to a 5-pager to a 20-pager, and then to a full manuscript in about 6 months, which was very fast for me. Wow. And then there was another, you know, 4 or 5 months of rewriting and notes and with the editor. But that's fast for me.
Wow, that's fast, period. Yeah. But you know what, the thing is that I've been finding more and more, it's like the less time you have, somehow the more you can do. Like, I feel like as my time is shrinking, I'm doing more stuff. Whereas when I had much more time, I was like, oh, well, how would I come up with an idea for this? And I don't know. But when you're under the gun, it's like, okay, so look at that. And now you have a whole book out of it.
Well, I think it's particularly true of working mothers. I mean, I remember a million years ago on Satellite Sisters, we had Ann Moore on, and she was the CEO of Time Inc. at the time, which was giant at the time. Yes. And she said the employees she loves the most are working mothers, because they are so efficient. They do not mess around. They don't have time to go for coffee or 2-hour lunches. Like, they're in, they're out, they do their work. And, you know, I have 2 sons that are grown now, but for 20 years, I was a working mom like you, and you drill down. You're like, okay, we have a 1-hour nap. I have 600 words to write in 1 hour. Go. Like, I just don't mess around. I'm pretty structured in my work, and, you know, I'm an outliner, and when I sit down, and I let the laundry go and the dishes go and a lot of things that could be distractions. But yeah, working mothers become super efficient, and that I feel like I learned a lot over the years about work and process, so that I could write this book in 6 months. I couldn't have done this 10 years ago, but this time I was ready. Plus, my kids are out of the house now.
Yeah, so that's nice.
It's fantastic. I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show, and especially someone as experienced on podcasting as you are. So it's a real honor, and thank you.
Well, I applaud you. Keep going. Keep going.